Cool. Thanks a lot, David. So we're planning, holiday season's coming up. Everyone's, trying to get their Christmas shopping done. One of the biggest problems within the retail space is reseller bots. So these are bots that go and buy up, limited inventory items and then sort of make sure that people can't get their hands on them. And then they resell them for a much higher price on the secondary market. I'm sure you remember a few years ago, the shortages of the PS5s. You couldn't get your hands on one, but you could buy it for 5 times the price, on eBay and all these, secondary markets. So, going into the holiday season, we decided that it might be a good idea to put together a series of articles around these reseller bots, going into a bit of detail about their origin, how did they even come about, the ecosystem that supports them, who makes them, why do they make them, how much do they sell them for, who buys them, why do they buy them, how do they use them, how much money are they making, going into the economics. And also because of our unique position, defending, some of the largest e-commerce sites in the world, we'll be able to provide a lot of detailed data about the volume, the scale of these attacks, how much each of those, actors is actually purchasing, how they're reselling them, how much profit and sort of the actual business model that these actors are going through. We also have one of the articles is going to focus on the different ways and approaches that retailers have tried to use in the past to defend against these reseller bots. And we have a rating scale on the efficacy of each of those approaches. So this goes from very low tech approaches all the way to the most sophisticated approaches, giving some hints in terms of what the pros and cons of each of those approaches are, as well as which of those approaches are going to be the most effective. So, they're still determining whether it'll be 4 or 5 articles in that particular series, but I think we're super excited about it. We believe this will be one of the most detailed exposés on these reseller bots, just due to our unique position and the amount of data and information that we have about these kinds of bots.
Yeah, from my point of view, working with Tafara and the team over recent months, I've come up to speed and learned a lot in terms of, I think what's really interesting is not just the kind of technical aspects, which I'll come back to in a second. It's trying to get across the business impact and really trying to get business leaders to understand the problems of bots. I think certainly the claim has been, I'm a gamer. I don't game as much as I used to be, but I was clearly kind of affected by the GPU shortages, and a lot of people were kind of pointing to vendors, or not vendors, but resellers, who seem to not be too bothered. Ultimately, if they had a bot purchase their GPU instead of a real human, who cares? But clearly you look at Twitter and you can start seeing how, the amount of bot or automated traffic hitting your service or site can have very real world and business impact. It's not just, selling the same thing to a different person. One thing I picked up on a lot is just the sheer wealth of abilities or technical capabilities of these bots to bypass defenses. I mean, they are going to the nth degree to look like and act like humans. In fact, there was, we frequently talk about capture. That's one of the kind of long known, long kind of hated, methods of trying to detect and or get around the whole, bot detection. But we've seen evidence for a long time of that being bypassed. There are new vendors coming out with, new methods of doing it. So I think it's important to understand both the kind of business impacts, but also the technical capabilities of these bots and really what you might be missing.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, David, I think is really spot on. One of the articles, spends, a significant amount of time going into the business side of things. I think, why should you as a retailer care? Because the assumption is always that, well, if I'm a reseller and I'm selling products, if the bot buys up all the products, then I should be happy. Why should I care as long as I get paid? The article goes into a lot of detail explaining why that is actually not in your best interest. A simple example of one of the reasons why you should care is, let's say you were selling PS5s. A legitimate user who buys a PS5 is going to buy the PS5. They might buy an additional controller. They might buy some new games to play on their new PS5. So you're making a lot more money, whereas the bot doesn't care about the controllers and the games. The bot is just going to buy the PS5s. So when you look at the bigger picture of things, you're actually making less money. So a lot of these insights will be in that article to really make it clear for business owners and for retailers and manufacturers why they should care about these kinds of bots and how they're being negatively impacted.
From my perspective, the thing that I thought of reading about these reseller bots, two things quick. one of the things while I was out this summer experiencing summertime, right, and nice weather where I am, there's not a lot of nice weather. So I went out and saw some outdoor concerts, and one of the things that people kept asking about is, man, did you notice the tickets were gone for this show in like seconds? And people kept asking, boy, how does that happen? And I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, logistically, how does this happen? Calculating like how I would go about do it. Cause I mean, you always got to put yourself in the black hat shoes, right? So I, went ahead and tried to figure out how to do that and, theorized. But another thing that I thought about was an SE here at F5 and I used to buy NFT comic books. And that was something that was really fun until these bots showed up. And like as soon as the comic would hit, I mean, really less than 1 second, gone. Every single copy, 30,000 copies of an NFT comic gone in less than 1 second.
Yeah, and I think, part of what we also go into is, the way that this particular space has become professionalized, because back in the day as an individual, you could write your own script, that actually just goes and purchases it. But the problem is if you try to do that today, your script is going to be a fraction of a second slower than the highly optimized ones that are created by professionals. You will not be able to purchase anything. So, there is reasons why there are people that are focused on absolutely optimizing it. And these individuals limit the number of people that they sell these bots to, because they realize that if they sell their bots to too many people, then their bots are competing against themselves. Therefore, it's a bad customer experience. These people can't buy any inventory. So they have specific quotas around how many of them they will sell to what people who want to do what with them. So a lot of that insight will be in that series of articles as well.
I took a look at the early copy of some of those articles that you sent over, and I think you really nicely articulate the difficulties of defending against them. It's one thing, we mentioned capture just then. And if you go back a decade, these were scripts written by a person in their bedroom kind of thing. And they were really easy to defend against. Throw a capture in front of it, you're done. Or, maybe use client-side JavaScript. At one point, it was as simple as, can the bot even execute JavaScript? Nope. Okay, it's not a human. All right, it can execute JavaScript, but does it behave like a human being on the other end? Nope. Okay, it's a bot. Now it's really, really, really difficult to discern bot traffic from human traffic. They're really good at pretending to be people.
Well, at the end of the day, especially if there really are people at the end, that's one technique that we've seen where actually a bot effectively makes a call to a human click farm. It's a room full of people who are actual humans interacting with captures and doing other things. So there's always going to be that element where there's a possibility that the bot, quote unquote, is using real humans to do some work. This is why, it's always going to be a layered defense. There's no one silver bullet for combating automation, but it does. There's a lot more kind of intricacies and capability of these bots than I think a lot of people realize.